I want to tell you, you're part of something special. You may not realize it yet. But D6 is something that is not new. The letters and the number D6 is new, but it's based upon Deuteronomy chapter 6. And that's been God's heartbeat this whole time. You're part of it today. It starts in your home. The very first command God gave to man was be fruitful and multiply. What he meant by that is multiply my image on your kids. He didn't just mean have a bunch of kids, because in Genesis 5 and 6, the world was fully populated. But God looked around and said, this is not good. And that's when he said, Noah, build a boat. And Noah preached and built a boat. And he tried to get people to accept God's image. But because they had watched their parents and their parents and their parents who didn't display godly image in the home, they weren't having any part of it. They weren't buying in. They weren't accepting God. And unfortunately, after building the boat, Noah, his 3 sons, their wives, got on that boat. And after the flood, when they walked out on dry ground, God repeated the command that he gave us in Genesis 1. He said, be fruitful and multiply. That's what he meant. Multiply my image to the next generation. Joshua chapter 24 says, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. It's a pretty powerful statement for a guy who is just about to die, because he's at the very end of his life here on this earth. But he had been intentional with his kids at home, and he knew that they would serve him. In fact, we can trace his family and the friends who modeled that same thing all the way down through Daniel, when they purposed in their heart. Psalm 78, the psalmist says, tell this to the next generation. It's the same thing as be fruitful and multiply. It's the same thing as let it be impressed upon your kid's heart. Be able to tell your kids. And it goes on to say, maybe you're listening and you're going, I'm not a parent. Maybe you're listening and you say, I'm a parent, but I'm not a grandparent. Psalm 78 talks about multiple generations. It says we purpose this in our heart so that we can tell our kids, and so that the generation not yet born will one day also know God.